Greetings, sentient beings. This broadcast is not intended for children. There will be strong language and adult themes. So, with us as always, we have Will, Godless Sewing.
How's it going? How's it going?
And it does say that there are 9 people watching. So I don't know who is lurking in the side chat yet.
I have 2 phones. So, Sofa will be on the same time that African Humanist is. So I'll be watching both at the same time on my phones, So I'll be commenting in one and not commenting in the other.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of times, I've got stuff that I have it running in background while I'm doing something else. So I'm listening to it, but I'm not at the keyboard the whole time.
Same. I've been redoing my house. So I've been listening to a lot of YouTube lately. So is today really National Kidney Day?
Yep. At least according to the internet.
I have so many questions. First, before we get started, when did we start naming every day? When did we start saying, "Hey, it's Secretary Day," or am I just old enough to remember when it wasn't like this?
Oh, I think it's a thing that the internet, made possible.
Hey, native atheist. Hey, scapegoat.
Great.
It's one of those weird things to me,
Yep.
But as far as kidney goes, I'm gonna say flat out, I'm so unhealthy and I've done so much to my body that I'm pre-embalming myself. So I've donated my body to science.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised my kidneys are as healthy as they are, but
same. When I get checkups, I tell the doctor, like, "Are you sure? Do you know what I've done to my body?" But I have a saying, you'd be amazed what you can do to the human body and live.
Yeah, because I often wonder why I'm still alive.
Same. I have the lung capacity of an 80-year-old man who smoked cigars his whole life, but I'm still here. I ask that question all the time.
Well, that's the thing for me. It's like, I don't think anything I've done has done any permanent damage.
There's certain things that I definitely see the permanent damage, the warning when they say, "Hey, don't do this. It'll be with you for the rest of your life."
Mm-hmm. Well, I have said many times that I'm grateful to this community for, helping me move out of Michigan. Because if I had been stuck in that small town, I am certain I would be an alcoholic by now.
I totally know how that goes.
Excuse me. Yeah, it runs very strongly in my family, so it wouldn't have taken much. And yeah, I just,
So there
I
was
couldn't be myself at all there. I basically had to be the image of how my family thinks I'm supposed to be the whole time I was living there.
I know how that goes. I know how that goes. One of the reasons I quit drinking is because someone that I really cared for, I watched them die of cirrhosis of the liver, and it was just awful to watch. And they had health insurance, so they passed away slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he never quit drinking, so it was awful. And after that was 8 years ago, and I quit drinking like 6 or 7 months after that person passed away. Because I had my own drinking problem, and I figured, I was on the pace to be just like him. Now I drink coffee and water.
Well, they haven't gotten to the comprehensive test yet, but by all indications, my kidney's still in good enough shape that they'd give it to Diana.
Oh, wow. That's a test I haven't gone in to see how healthy I am, if I can donate body parts. My real wish is when I pass away to be thrown under a tree or Like I'm looking in to be buried into one of those pods
Yeah.
where they put a seedling in your chest cavity.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm going for. I don't think
I'm
they'd let me do the Viking funeral, so I'll have to settle for being a tree.
It's really funny. One of the reasons I think my dad was an atheist was that like I always say, he went to church because my mom did, but when he passed away, it was in his wishes to be cremated.
Yep.
And that's against quite a few religions.
Well,
So
I've always said that my grandfather was pagan. He just didn't know the word for it. Because he went to church on Sunday, because you live in a small town and everybody's expected to do that.
Exactly.
But whenever he actually felt he needed to pray, he walked a half mile out into the woods and sat on a hollow log by the lake.
It's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I work on a giant property that's 65 acres. I'll go out in my tractor and sit out in the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the most peaceful, calming thing on earth. Even with the tractor going, with everything, it's because I'm by myself. It's just me and my thoughts. I think people should do that more.
Yeah.
Self-care is important.
Well, my grandpa cut trees for the paper mills, was part of his income.
Oh wow. Did he do it with an axe, or did he have a
Oh, yeah.
chainsaw?
Well, I mean, he started out with an axe because he was started doing it in the Depression. But yeah, he moved up to chainsaws eventually.
That's like when my grandfather passed, I saw the progression of tools over his era, and it was awesome to see him go from an axe to like a semi-functioning chainsaw.
My grandpa was very aware of the progression of technology, because he had said that when he was born, the automobile hadn't been invented, and he saw a man walk on the moon.
That's the reason why I would always ask my I come from a really old family. So I'd always ask questions as a kid, because I don't think that my grandmother, my grandfather realized that they lived through like, history. And my grandmother
Yep.
lived to be 99 years old. So I would always ask my grandpa about World War II, about when he was a kid growing up in Mexico. Good times.
He was a World War II veteran, but he would not talk about it.
Like I always say, my grandfather, he partied hard. Like my grandma, and they went on cruises around the world. My grandpa would drink scotch at like 11 on a Saturday, while he was gardening. He would tell fun stories, but he never got into details.
Mm-hmm.
My father would like, he got help, but he would tell you like gory details of things of war. Like, nah, war isn't sweet. It's not nice. It's awful. So I have a different view on human beings because of a Vietnam veteran era person I grew up around. But the World War II era, they kept their mouth shut.
Yeah. Yeah.
I-
And I mean, it's kind of strange that my dad never. Well, I mean, I can understand. He definitely had PTSD, although at the time they didn't know how to diagnose that. But um, there are actually history books about his division and what they
oh wow,
did. And he had 2 Purple Hearts.
that's awesome.
So I actually learned more about my father's service from World War II from going to the library than from anything he would ever say.
I have an uncle who's a real asshole. He was a sheriff out in the town where I'm from for over 40 years. He is one of those people who just became jaded. He thinks everyone's a liar, total a-hole. I found out that he did the real life Forrest Gump, because one day my cousin was like, I didn't know my dad had Purple Hearts. He saved like 9 people, and dragged them onto a helicopter while people were shooting at him. And for as much as an a-hole as he was, he never told that story. My
Well,
other uncle told that story, but he never told that story.
my father was part of the 95th Infantry, which got nicknamed the Iron Men of Metz. Actually, it
Okay.
was the Germans who gave them that nickname after they had held off the Germans trying to take the town a half dozen times.
I know what you're talking about. When I lived in Portland, I went through this weird World War II phase where I'd watch documentaries all the time.
Oh, I used to. Back in the 90s, when the History Channel actually told you something about history, that
Exactly.
was my default. I had that on all the time.
Same. We used to call it the H word channel. I don't know if you can say the H word without being shut down, but I learned more about World War II from the History Channel than I ever learned from history class.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in school, they go over things so fast, you don't really learn much of anything.
Like, what is it? I have a book. It's 1942, I think, the year the Axis changed or something like that. It's a book literally dedicated to 1 year because so much happened in that 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and when I was a kid, I'll never forget in junior high in a Holtland Mifflin book. It was 3 paragraphs. It said First Prussian War, and it was the entire war in 1 paragraph. Then it was like Second Prussian
Wow.
War,
Yeah.
and even as a kid, I was like, didn't this take a while? Weren't they fighting this like through people's lifetimes?
Well, and like this crap that's going on now with the Ukraine. Both sides of my family came to America because Russia decides to move the borders around periodically.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't even get me started.
My father's side's from Poland, my mother's side's from Finland. And in both cases, it's like, yeah, the Russians decided they were going to push the border back 100 miles, so everybody got up and left.
How long has Russia been doing this? Because people think this is something that's new, or like Afghanistan not falling. Like, how many times has that happened in history?
Yeah, actually, my father's grandfather, we really don't have any story for how he got here. The only picture anyone has of him before he came to America, he's in a Russian soldier's uniform. So our best guess is that they conscripted him and he somehow defected and got on a boat to America.
That reminds me my grandmother, who lived to be 99, she was from Chihuahua, Mexico, on my mom's side. And she was raised like a Pueblo Indian. My grandfather came from Sinaloa. He lived in more of an incorporated city. When they came to America, they literally just crossed over the border. My grandmother, her father was a real life bandito. I'll get the picture in a minute. But people that are related to me started doing genealogical research, and they found out that he was an exiled Jew from Spain, and they kicked him out because they didn't want Jewish people in Spain, but they wanted to keep Mexico Spanish because he was a Spaniard, even though he was Jewish, and so they exiled him to Mexico. And I'll never forget, we looked at my grandmother. She was like 94, and we were like, "You're Jewish," which meant all of us we were more mad at her because she was the colonel at church. If you messed up, my grandma would beat you up when church was over. Like, if you messed up, my grandma would I was raised old school. Adults, they put hands on kids back then.
Yeah.
So we were real nice in church.
Yeah, I'm glad that by the time I was growing up, my mother just seemed to be pretty much tired of raising kids in general. But yeah, the church wasn't really a big thing. She tried sending me to the catechism classes and that, and yeah, it never really took. But it wasn't like we had to go to church every Sunday. Pretty much only were going on holidays, as far as I recall.
From the time I was baptized until the first Sunday after I was confirmed, I went to church every Sunday short of an illness. every Sunday until I was probably 18 years old. And I feel sorry for people that were raised like me. I went to
Well,
catechism classes every Tuesday, church every Sunday, for a long time. That's why I became so indoctrinated, you know.
yeah.
Good times. But that literally, because when you're confirmed, they tell you, hey, it's your choice to go to church. That next Sunday I slept in for the first time in my life ever on a Sunday, ever. That I could at least remember.
Yeah, I'm the only member of my family who never got confirmed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I couldn't stay with the church classes long enough to get through that.
See, Native Atheist knows what I'm talking about. Like, you could tell when someone's raised old school.
Yeah.
Oh, scapegoat. Being raised in a church, I'm sure she could say the same thing. You start asking questions. I would ask questions, and famously I would get kicked out because I wasn't scared of adults.
Yeah. Well, that's why I never got too far, was I asked too many questions.
Hmm.
Was when I was 8 or 9 years old, the senior priest pulled my mother aside and asked him to stop sending me to the children's classes because I was asking questions that made the nuns feel awkward.
That raises quite a few questions. It there's certain memories where I'm like, wow, I remember that because it scarred me. There were nuns in my church when I was going to catechism classes at a young age. They would tell us, you guys are so lucky that it's the 80s because 10 years ago we were able to beat kids. They would say that all the time because they wanted to put hands on us.
And that's a fact because I was growing up in the 70s and they could still slap you with a ruler.
Mine was late 80s, and they told us they made laws to protect you guys against people like us. The nuns were no joke. Like, they were, because they were older women, and they were like, you guys have no idea how lucky you are, because we were an ornery bunch, and they would tell us, like, you're lucky. We used to beat kids like you.
Yep. Yeah, I remember one of the nuns had a steel ruler. And I remember that because when she hit you with it, the edge would cut. You would
Ooh.
bleed after she whacked you with that.
See, nowadays someone would go to prison for that. I have a question for you though. Do you think that ending punishment like that has hurt or helped society? Hi, godless granny.
I'm not really sure, as far as society at large, but yeah, I don't think that hitting kids really accomplishes anything.
Because my parents were so hardcore, I'm a non-hitter. I
Yep.
don't, but that's because I considered what my parents did abuse, but I'm not. Everybody around me was treated like that. So it's not like it was only me. Like, I grew up in a semi-affluent area. All the rich kids were getting beat too. It was just a different era. It was just a different era of rigid discipline. And sometimes I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Hey, Granny. Yeah, like I said, well, I know in my case it didn't help at all. Just because I got blamed for stuff I didn't do, I got away with stuff I did. So there was never any connection between my actions and the punishment. When there's no connection between it, it doesn't do anything. It just makes the kid think you're an asshole.
It made me just not tell my parents anything. I omitted the truth at all costs because I knew the stakes were high. So I couldn't be honest with them because I knew that there were hardcore rigid consequences. But my parents were 42 years older than me. So they were from a way different generation than me, you know.
Yeah, that's about the same. That yeah, my dad would have been 43 when I was born.
So there's a you know, the old schoolers were no joke. They were it, I look at kids Isaiah's age, or even like my neighbor's kids, and I'm like, these children have no idea how we were treated back in the day. No idea. And sometimes, like I said, I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. In my case, it didn't keep, you know.
Yeah, I don't think it accomplished anything most of the time, so that's why I don't. Yeah.
I just don't. Fear is not respect. So if someone fears you, that doesn't mean they respect you.
Right.
You know. So I just don't see a point in hitting kids.
And it seems that most of the people who believe in corporal punishment don't understand that there's a difference there.
At all. And but also I hate to be cliche, but I think a lot of people that have control issues have no self-control, or they're so narcissistic that they need a circle around them, you know. It's I don't know. I don't, you know, anybody, what is it? Anybody can have a child, but very few people are parents. Is that the
Yeah.
cliche?
Yep.
It takes a different kind of person to, like, you know, it's different with my son having ASD, but like I had to find patience, you know, because I'm an extremely impatient person, but I had to learn, you know, kids will teach you patience real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Well, and unfortunately for parenting, there generally isn't a lot of education or pre-work to it. It's usually learning on the job.
And I hate to say it, it's also the examples that came before you. Like, I had a very active father who was a positive influence in my life. And so I just did what he did, you know, in many ways, but I had that example is what I'm trying to say. And
Yeah.
there, you know, and there's a lot of people who don't. And that's, you know, and I'm not dogging anybody at all in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying, like, you know, we need more positive people, more positive on earth, you know,
Yeah.
because your kids are watching you.
Yeah, my parents had, basically were done with the parenting before I was around. So it was left to the older siblings.
You know,
So I didn't actually have any parents, but I had 5 people who thought they were my parents.
That's very Hispanic. Like in certain cultures, not just the Hispanic culture, but in certain cultures, like the oldest raises all the rest of the kids.
Yeah.
It's the reason my sister and I hate each other.
Yeah. Well, because the 3 oldest ones were teenagers when I was born. There's 15 years between me and my oldest brother.
That's like one of my middle brothers. There's 14 years. Actually, I have my oldest brother is going to be, I believe, 62 or 63 this year.
Yep. And my parents really felt that, they were responsible enough to be parents because my oldest brother and my oldest sister are my godparents. They even made it official. Unfortunately, my oldest brother has become a fundamentalist and takes that very seriously. So he thinks it is his duty on this earth to save my immortal soul. And considering his version of salvation, yeah, definitely want to go to hell.
So my brother kind of said the same thing, like, oh, it's I'm just trying to save your soul. I asked him a question. What does that mean? What does that mean? Like, trying to save your internal, I don't, the atheist cliche, I do not believe in a soul, that there's some spirit, that's gonna float out when I pass away. I'm a bit of a nihilist, actually.
Well, and that is why, as far as I'm concerned, proof positive that heaven cannot exist, because there can be no version of heaven that both my eldest brother and I would both be happy living in.
I think about this
It's
all
one
the
or the
time.
other.
I think about this all the time. Like my version of heaven would be no one in my family would be near me. No one. They would be I would be able to forget them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm good with going to hell. I am certain I could handle eternal torture much better than eternal boredom.
When I when I was a kid, I used to always think like, heaven is going to be really boring. And Bob Marley kind of said it the best. Like, well, you go to heaven and everybody's just high. Like you're sitting there and you're staring at God and like, or you're prostrating all day, like in
Yep.
Stargate. When the Ori came, you're just on your knees all day. That doesn't
Yeah.
and if you ask a hardcore fundamentalist Christian or a young earth creationist, they'll say, I'll be with God. It won't matter. I'll be with God. It doesn't matter. What does that entail? I want some details. Or
Yeah.
if you ask a Muslim, they'll say, when you go to heaven, it's going to be lands of milk and honey. I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
And I think honey's gross.
Well, that's
So
the big question, what will you be doing all day in heaven? What will you spend all your time doing? Because virtually everything I enjoy doing is considered a sin, so it wouldn't be allowed up there.
exactly. Are there sewing machines in heaven? Because part of my my unwinding is grabbing one of my sewing machines that I can't fix and trying to fix it. I've been working on one for like 6 months. I finally got the feed dogs going, Being left alone sometimes is
Well,
because I'm a parent, I like silence sometimes.
Will, there's good news and there's bad news. There would be sewing machines up there, but none of them would ever jam.
That's boring. That's another thing. That's another thing. It's not heaven if I can't go to a thrift store and walk around in my coveralls on a Saturday. I think everyone has their version of it. There's a YouTuber of Herbs and Altars. They break down heaven. They have a huge library, so you have to go through all the videos. But one of their videos, they go into details about like, wait a minute, like what we were just saying. Like my version of heaven would be hell for somebody else.
Yep. Have
And
you heard that Cat Kerr woman? She claims that she visits heaven regularly.
I feel sorry for people like that. I honestly feel sorry for people like that. Like I don't know in all the stuff that I watched, there were videos of people saying like Jesus is coming back specifically on this date. And then they had to go back when Jesus didn't come, and they had to be like, hey, Jesus didn't come. I think that's a deep psychological need in a cry for help,
Yeah.
Is Greg Locke really on the hunt for witches? I have to look that up. Like Greg Anderson, Greg Locke, they're is that his name? Greg
Yeah.
Anderson? They're bad for my blood pressure.
Yeah. Greg Locke did do a sermon that he said that there were witches right here in our church, and we know who they are. And so basically, I guess since he hasn't made enough traction going after the gays, he's trying to get the people in his church to turn each other in for anything they do wrong now.
I don't get it. I don't.
Yeah, turning your followers on each other, I don't see how that's a good strategy.
We are digressing. We are literally digressing as a species. What happened? If we go back to a witch burning, I'm gonna take my truck and just drive into Canada. I'm not even gonna ask. I'm just gonna go live in the woods somewhere. Oh, this is getting crazy.
I don't think it's so much digressing as, we're stopping the normal mechanisms from working. See,
I,
because in the wild, the idiots would just get killed off.
exactly.
Society protects them and keeps them alive. So in the wild, we'd be progressing because the really stupid people would get themselves killed off,
Damn.
and it would only be the fairly intelligent and above that would manage to get into the next generation.
And now we have people who believe the earth is flat, witches are real, and that you can burn snow. Thank you, Texas. Thank you, Texas,
Yeah.
for that one. I'll never forget that for as long as I live. People literally with snowball in one hand and a lighter in the other.
Yeah.
Oh, America needs help. Oh, we need help. I was so disappointed in my country when that happened.
If I had a camera I could have taken outside in the winter, I would have gone and made a video just to show that the same thing happens in Minnesota, that there's nothing different about your snow down there.
That's not a bad idea. There's mountains within driving distance that it snows up there. It snows heavily up there. It just scares me, and I think also because of the internet that we can all interact with each other, so we see how crazy people really are.
Yeah.
It's a insane time.
Well, yeah, it used to be, if somebody had conspiracy theories, that the most they could do was, go stand in the park on a soapbox and, yell at a couple dozen people passing by. Now with the internet, these people, get an audience of tens of thousands.
You know what's really funny? Now that you mention that, do you know what I don't see anymore is the end is nigh people. And even after the year 2000, we had people in my hometown on the streets just screaming that Jesus was coming back and that we better repent our sins because there was one guy I actually walked up to him and talked to him, and I'll never forget because my dad drove by and was like, "What the F?" And he just kept driving. But I really wanted to know this guy's motivation.
Yeah.
And I felt sorry for him because I kind of think he was mentally disabled in a way. Or he presented himself where he was such a zealot that all he could do was recite Bible verses.
And those people are still around. You still have the doomsday preachers and that. But a lot of it's like you said, though, that now with the internet, that the stuff's getting recorded, they have to be a lot more careful about it because they can't go and say they didn't say that when somebody can pull up a video from 2 years earlier.
Oh, okay. So I was obsessed with TBN, okay? And what's his Ron Parsley on 8808 put his career on the line. He was a semi-famous evangelical. He made millions of dollars, like Creflo Dollar, all of those people, but he was such a fervent believer in his own bullshit that he said Jesus was coming back on 808, and it ruined his career. Because for a year and a half, every other sermon, and I started watching for a while. I was like, I can't wait to see this guy crash and burn, and he did.
Yeah. Well, we still had it going. I mean, look at the big thing that everybody said that the world was going to end in 2012 because of the Mayan calendar.
Oh. My brother, who I semi-respect, who's a grown man, who's 14 years older than me, he's a good person. He swore that the world was going to end in 2012. He almost convinced me. I was like, "Why are you so scared?
Yeah.
Why are you so scared?"
Yeah, and it's like, of course, nobody wanted to listen to the experts. Nobody wanted to listen to the archaeologists who had spent their life studying the Mayan culture, who said that the calendar ends, and all that tells them is it's time to carve a new calendar.
And I say this all the time. Like the Mayans were awesome because they did predict that the planets were gonna align. And guess what? They're still
Yeah.
aligned because just as long as it took them to line up, that's taking them just as long to drift away from each other. So right now
Yeah.
is a great time to take a view of our swash of the solar system, you know. I was out there
They
earlier.
seem to have a grasp on astronomy that's really is kind of hard to explain.
They
Excuse me.
had a hardcore grasp on astronomy, but they
Yeah.
also were brutal, brutal dictators to the point where when the Spanish came, the other tribes were like, "Oh, you have these boomsticks? Let me take you to these guys. You like
Hmm.
gold?" They literally took them to the Mayans because the Mayans, like, if you think about it, they sacrificed somebody every time the moon came out. Imagine being from those surrounding tribes.
Yeah.
So they were accomplished astronomers because they did predict exactly what was going to happen.
Hmm.
But just like I've gotten arguments lately with people about the pyramids. You know, they were just privy to information that we're not.
Well, part of it's just the long history that their culture had been going for a couple thousand years.
It is.
So
I'm sorry.
even stuff like the astronomy, it's like, yeah, if you watch it for a couple of centuries, you'll notice that things start to repeat.
Yeah, exactly. And the Egyptians, and this is the one thing that gets me going and really pisses me off when people start talking about Egypt. Much like the Romans, the Egyptians wrote on the walls. It's been
Hmm.
translated. They were real people. There were camps of people building the pyramids. And like I don't know, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but there's this really awesome documentary I watched. Um, it fully explains also cheating. I went there as a kid, but it also explains um like what these people were saying. There's this one where this woman was like, what so and so's wife drank too much and so and so's husband can't keep his wiener in his pants. Like they were real people, you know. But we put these weird
Yeah.
connotations on history, you know, but they were actual real people.
Well, that's the thing. You don't go to the pyramids. You don't go to the big monuments to the king. If you want to find out about how the people lived, you have to find where the actual people lived.
Exactly. Exactly. And
So
then
yeah, when you find the bunkhouse,
yeah,
where there were like 100 craftsmen living there together while they were working on stuff.
with their families.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was drama. Just like if you put 100 humans in a giant hall right now, we would be drama.
Yeah.
Because
And
we are.
like you say, it's mostly the same stuff that still happens today. It's yeah, who's playing around on the side with whose wife, and
Somebody got wasted
yeah,
and did something stupid.
yeah, who can't handle their wine.
Exactly. Exactly. That in even like with the obelisks, I remember when Ancient Aliens came out and they were like, "Oh, how was this built?" I remember screaming at the television and being like, if you walk on the back side of the pyramids, you can see where they were cutting out the effing obelisk out of the literally right next to it, you know."
Yep.
Oh, but you know, as history goes on, it becomes a football story.
Football story.
Every 10 years you become more of a hero. So like, did you watch Married with Children?
I didn't get into it much. I watched it occasionally.
Al Bundy, his crowning achievement in his life was scoring 4 touchdowns in one game. And so he would constantly talk about high school football, and he was like, my age now, back when the show was on. So it was hilarious because he
Yeah.
was working at a shoe store. So I always tell myself, like, don't tell football stories, because as the years go on, you add a little fluff.
Oh,
Instead
yeah.
of just throwing the football, it was snowing. you know, Fishing
Yeah.
stories are real.
And I always think that's so sad about, how many people in their 40s and 50s talk about wanting to go back to how it was in high school. And it's like,
Oh,
if you peaked before you were 20 and the rest of your life has been so sad you want to go back to that.
there's a bar in my town where it's known you do not go there unless you are a washed up ex high school football star. And it's really sad because they've kept the tradition alive and people still go there and tell football stories. And at
Yeah.
my age, you're telling stories from 26 years ago, 25 years ago, like, oh no, it's 2022 from 27 years ago. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's like I got an invitation for my 40th high school reunion already.
Oh wow. I
Was it 40th
refuse.
or
uh, I refuse to go to my 20th. Like,
yeah.
and that's another thing because my town was a small town. I still w- sometimes I regret moving back to my hometown, but it's a great place for a kid to grow up. But I still see some of these fools. So it's not like we don't get high school reunions just going to the Dairy Queen. I have a sister who wants to
And
go back to 1840.
I was like, I didn't want to talk to any of these people when I was in high school. Why would I want to go back and talk to them now?
The only reason I want to go back is to be like, haha, I kind of made it. F you. Was be like, it's just the ultimate slam dunk of like the stoner went to trade school and has a better job than you.
Well, I finished high school in that same small town in Michigan. So it's easy to see who made it. They don't live there anymore.
Oh,
Anybody who could get a job or could save any money left town by the time they were 30.
that's smart. That's smart. I was gone from the time I was 17 until I was 30, so I missed out on a lot of the stuff, which is I'm better off for because I don't hang out with any of my old friends. I'm still friends with a lot of people, but I really consider it weird if you're still doing the same thing 27 years later. And
Yeah.
that's not an indictment on anybody, but like I'm one of those people that challenges myself to do something different every year. If it's just one thing.
Well, if you found a career that's satisfying, that's one thing. But if you're bitching about going to your job every day that you don't enjoy what you're doing and you're still doing it after 20 or 30 years, yeah. And I understand a lot of people get stuck in it. A lot of if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's hard to get out from that.
Very much so. Very much so. And that's the problem with modern day terms is that the average person cannot move because the
Yeah.
prices are so high everywhere. And on behalf of all exiled Californians, I apologize because it's people that come from California is why they're not just California, but they're raising the price because you know what's the value of a 3-bedroom home where you live?
I wouldn't know. I'd have to look it up.
Where in my neighborhood it's 800,000 to 900,000. In Colorado, my neighbor and I we talk about this all the time. For the same value of our houses, we can live in a four-story house in out in Colorado for less money.
Yeah.
So people in California, I don't blame them for leaving California because we're paying through the skull. I paid a Skids Crasher, Skid, I can't even say it right now.
Skits.
Skids Crasher. I think I took a picture of how much I paid for gas the other day. It was $74 for 12 gallons. And I know that's not nation average because we're like 5 and some change right now.
Well, and I don't get, because I even see, the news headlines saying record gas prices, and it's like, fuck, you're lying. These are not record gas prices. When I drove from Minnesota to New York in 2009, I was paying between $4.25 and $4.65 a gallon.
Oh, wow.
So this is not the first time gas has ever gone over $4 a gallon.
No, and during the George Bush era, gas was $4 or $5. And Native Atheist, so everybody hold on to your seat. For a 2-bedroom apartment, it starts around 1,700 and goes anywhere to 2,000 for 1 to 2 bedroom. And if you want to live anywhere decent, you're paying like 3,000, $3,000 a month. My ex-wife moved out. She owned a condo and was subletting it or whatever, and she was living in an apartment, and they raised her rent to $2,300 for a 2-bedroom apartment, and she just moved back into her condo, which is like a castle compared to that apartment. Rent's crazy in California, and quite honestly, like, I don't know how people. Jyuni used to always say to me, I don't know how you survive in California. It's nepotism and luck, but I don't know how the average person survives in California. It's unreal here.
I think nepotism is definitely a big chunk of it. How many people do you have who are recently arrived out there who didn't get some boost up from their parents?
Oh, very much so. And the people that are moving into my neighborhood are like, they're rich for real. We have some new neighbors that moved in. They paid $900,000 for a house. Like, they're not broke. They're not. It's really strange. And so we're getting a new. That's one of the reasons I want to leave, because my neighborhood isn't Mayberry. It's not as Mayberry as it used to be, and that's okay. The world changes. Like, I'm not against change, but times are crazy here in California.
Is skits $6 a gallon?
I know where you live.
I don't know where you live at.
That's got to be somewhere in California. That's got to be somewhere in Cali. Or maybe New York. There's a gas station between here and Vegas. Their gas has been $5.75 since the 70s, because he knows if you go to his gas station, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And he's even like, and his son bought it out and didn't change the price either. But it's still there. Yeah, exactly. Northern California. Exactly. Like, It's unreal right now in California. And there was a giant exodus out of San Jose because people couldn't afford to live in their own area anymore. And quite honestly, like, I don't blame them.
Where I lived in Michigan, like I say, it was an hour drive to the nearest Walmart. That's driving an hour into Wisconsin. And going along that Wisconsin State Highway down there was a gas station kind of in the middle of it. And his prices were always about 40-50 cents a gallon more than anyone else, because there wasn't another gas station within 30 miles either direction.
Damn right. That's capitalism. I'll drink to that.
Yeah, if your car was on the E mark, you were going to pay whatever he wanted you to pay.
I'm not, there's like, capitalism makes you a vulture. So I'm not anti-vulture. 40 cents isn't that bad. Like, the guy in Vegas, like, gas, even on a bad day, it's usually like $3, $4 here in Cali. Like, $5.15 is a lot of money. I took a picture when I paid $74 the other day because I was like, wow. And
Yeah.
it makes me want to drive less because it's a lot. I go on these extravagant driving journeys on the weekend, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I might stay home this weekend.
I wish that was the case, but like I said, I remember back in 2009, everybody raised a big stink about it. But after a couple of weeks, everything went back to the same. Nobody was driving any less. Nobody was trading in their SUVs for smaller vehicles.
Well, also,
And I saw the same thing happen the first time gas got to $3 a gallon and the first time it got to $2 a gallon. And I remember the huge panic the first time gas got above 99 cents a gallon because the pumps weren't calibrated. The pumps didn't have a 3-digit display. So, yeah, the gas stations really didn't know how they were going to calculate this.
I, oh, that's hilarious. I remember when gas hit $1.50, and my father looked at me and he's like, "What is this world coming to?" Look at us now, Look at us now.
I
Oh,
remember as a kid digging in the seats for change because gas was like 35 cents a gallon.
I miss those. And now we're having the old people talk, but I miss those days when I put $5 in my Ford Ranger and I was able to drive to LA and back round trip and still have gas, the next day. And I had a crappy Ford Ranger that didn't go over 85 miles an hour. It was like an 80 something, and I loved that stupid truck, and $5 filled it up.
Yeah, I got a small car. It's all I need.
But now and I can't even talk trash about people because I own 2 giant gas guzzling trucks. And I haven't been driving my other truck because I don't want to see it's probably going to cost me like 175 $200 to fill both tanks.
Yeah, I got a little hatchback, so it it's got a 12-gallon tank. So it's never been too hard on me. But it's got the range for it.
Native atheist, I love your joke. I that oh, I miss Sloth Girl. So I took her to the gas station. Yeah, times are but I lived through like I said, I lived through the George Bush era because the other day I saw a meme and it's like y'all forgot about George Bush, and I did. I really did. There were high gas prices back then too.
Yeah, well, that 2009. That it was kind of the end of Bush, just as
Mm-hmm.
Obama got elected.
So it's they use us
Yep.
because they know we're gonna pay it anyways. Excuse me. Excuse me. It goes back to my rant
Yep.
about Star Trek. Like Star Trek privatized because they know people like me would pay money every month to watch
Yep.
it. They know we're
Well,
saps.
and energy companies know they can get away with it, and they know, and history has proven out that you're not going to use less. You're not going to change your habits, so they can get away with charging whatever they want.
Because I put it on a gas on a credit card. When I pay for my gas, sometimes I don't even look. And last weekend I went to Ventura, and it makes me wonder how much money it cost me just for a $12 sewing machine. Really, how much money did I spend? Because I had to buy a new camera, which was like the cost of a 1992 Honda Accord, and I had to pay for gas. So I spent thousands of dollars to buy a $12 sewing machine. And I love my camera. I'm not bitching. It's just I was having having an existential crisis when I was like, I just paid a lot of money for a camera when all I do is buy and refurbish things. Recycling is quite literally my shtick. And for anyone who wonders what those horns are, I have the Los Angeles Kings app by the National Hockey League, and so whenever the Kings score, my phone sounds the horn.
Okay, I was wondering what that was.
And I have a ring, so anytime someone passes past my front door, I am the wind chimes. So you can get your pitchforks out if you've been wondering who the wind chimes are. It's me. My house is tapped. Back in the 70s, people were worried about phone taps. I have Alexa, what's the temperature right now?
Right now, it's 56 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oof, winter in California. I have a ring. I have a closed circuit video camera. So you can't tap into that one. But and I own Apple products, so my house is fully tapped. Are you anti A word, Purple? I just don't want to say that A word again.
No. Wait, I'm not sure which A word you're talking about.
Alexa.
Oh. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think I need anything in my house that's voice activated.
It took me a while to get used to it, and there was commercials set off my A word. So I was in the bathroom one day, and I'm sitting. It was on the weekend. I'm home alone, and apparently one of the commercials on YouTube said A word, play Who Let the Dogs Out. That song was playing the entire time I was sitting in the bathroom. And I'm like, why is the A word going off? And yes, Native Atheist, it's like, what's that Stanley Kubrick movie? Space, what's that movie? Oh, I can't remember now where it's like, yes, Dave.
Oh, 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, it's like that. I don't want to upset the AI in the house. So I say A word because it sets her off. Sorry I squeed on that one, because if you think about it, we all leave a digital footprint. You cannot hide in today's world. I'm sorry. If you sign into anything with your real name, if you own a credit card, if you buy a cheeseburger with anything that's on credit, like, you're in the digital system, so to speak.
Well, everybody is. They track you one way or another.
Exactly. So I quit swimming against the tide, because I was one of those like holdouts. I thought iPhones were ridiculous until I got one, and it became an addiction. And quite honestly, if it wasn't for my iPhone, I would have never got on YouTube, because I downloaded the app and it forced me to start a channel.
Wow. So you can't just be an observer. It's going to make you be a creator, huh?
Well, in order to speak, it makes you sign in. So in order to sign in, you basically have to register as a channel. And so, and like anybody else, I typed in atheist, and then the fell down the rabbit hole, so to speak, So I don't talk too much trash about my iPhone, because it's been there for me. But it's hilarious how dependent I've become on the technology when I didn't get one until I was well in my 30s.
Yeah. I'm still not entirely sold on the idea of having a cell phone, let alone a smartphone. So
it's replaced. I used to read all the time. It's replaced me walking around with books in my face. I used to obsessively read Star Trek books, and not ever since, but like when I have my iPhone, it's like, I would be in the bathroom with my with my book. When I'd go pick up my son, I'd have my book. When anywhere I'd go, I'd always have a book with me. But when I got my my iPhone, like, I can listen to the books. So it's cheating. So I stopped buying a lot of the books because I listen to them now online. It's one of those, it's like anything else. iPhone addiction is real. Smartphone addiction is real.
Yeah. I guess I'm still not sold on it.
I would say, I would honestly kind of be against it because in a lot of ways, the internet is an extremely positive thing. But on the flip side, like I have horror stories, and I'm sure you do as well, Perp. Like I have horror stories of people who take liberties online that they would never take in real life. Never. You know.
Well, I've been pretty good, with as far as most of my new relationships have started out online.
Oh, same. A lot of my recent ones, my past like 2 or 3.
For me, pretty much all my significant relationships since, since the mid '90s, before we were even on the internet.
My old babysitter, she met her husband on Match.com or whatever, and their oldest child is like 19 or 20 right now. Every time I see her, it makes me feel old. But it could
Well, my ex, who I lived with for 12 years, I met because she was running a local BBS before anybody had the internet.
Skid Scratcher brings up a really good point about anonymity makes cowards brave. And Native Atheist also makes a good point of how it brings out, I think, both. It makes people who would never say anything to your face, because they know you cannot. Because in the real world, I come from a world of consequences. Like in LA, if you were to get crazy with someone, you're probably going to get punched in the face repeatedly. So most people don't mess with each other because there's always that threat of violence. It is sad. And Native Atheists, you are right, because there's lots of people that have said some really crazy, controlling things to me, and I'm like, I'm a grown ass man. I live in my own house. I mind my own business.
Oh, yeah, well, there's definitely people say a lot online that they would never say to someone's face.
Oh, not at all. And like spatial perception, like you don't know how big somebody is. You could talk trash and they could be like, refrigerator Perry size, biker size. Oh, I'm old school in the way where I try to give people respect. They're like back in the day, like this is my point I was trying to make about like even though kids got beat back in the day, there was this certain respect that we all had for each other where we didn't cross certain lines. And being online has taken a lot of those barriers away, where someone will say something and you're like, you would never say that to my face. If we were face to face, you would never say that to me.
Yeah.
So it was shocking for me at first in a lot of ways. I've been watching a lot of old school television because I'm over the war and everything, Skits Crasher. So I've been going back to the 80s to the we romanticize our past. So I've been watching a lot of the old TV shows from the 80s and 90s. So I'm gonna make some really old references.
Yeah, I never quite got the thing about romanticizing your past either. I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot in my life that I would want to go back to.
I had a really weird upbringing, so a lot of it was good, a lot of it was crap. How's it going, Mark Short? But I watched a lot of television as a kid to escape. And I always jokingly say that like Homer Simpson, Archie Bunker, Sherman Helmsley, they raised me. Fred Sanford, like they literally raised me because I would watch TV as a kid a lot of the time. So I consider a lot of that more funny than stuff nowadays. Stuff nowadays just I don't know. Maybe I don't have a sense of humor anymore, but I just don't laugh.
Yeah, I remember Archie Bunker, but mostly I remember him because my dad didn't get it. I remember one time, we were sitting in the living room watching All in the Family, and Archie Bunker was going on one of his rants, and my dad stopped in the doorway to listen for a minute and said, "You kids listen to this guy. He makes good sense."
not realizing it's satire.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, my dad just didn't get it.
Oh.
My dad wasn't racist like that. He didn't have a problem with anybody based on their skin color or their religion. But for him, everything was a matter of, like he would say, "I've got nothing against Mexicans. They're good workers."
I know what you're saying. I know
And
exactly.
but actually to him, that was like the highest compliment he could pay anyone, was saying that they were a good worker, because, that's to him, everything was about, yeah, were you productive today? What did you get done? If you don't have something you can show me that you built, then you wasted the day, and yeah, forget about it.
I know that generation. My dad was kind of like that too. Definitely like that. Things humans, they don't know who they are. They feel you know who they are. It's harder to change your mind. Very, very. I agree with you, Hans. And I had to learn that because people said some crazy stuff to me online. And you know what? People would misconstrue things that I would say because I would come in with sex jokes and say funny things. Then all of a sudden I started getting a sea of dick pics from weirdos. I'm still gonna release my greatest hits. I was thinking about when I saw that thing with Vladimir Putin and all the did you see that on Twitter? There was a picture of Vladimir Putin and it said zoom in and it was all dick pics.
I don't think I have ever gotten an unsolicited dick pic.
I think it still happens. Part of me thinks it's one person who just goes and gets pictures off the internet of random penises and sends them to me. It's weird. It is weird. Somebody's got like 100 sock accounts and they cannot leave me alone.
Well, I've definitely never gotten one on my phone because, it's basically, I don't give my phone number out to anyone unless we're pretty much already decided that we're going to meet somewhere.
Oh, very much so. I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. I think part of the problem, like I said earlier, people take hardcore liberties online that they would never in real life. I bet most of those dick pic people are actually really conservative and would never flash like a real. Oh man, that's
Yeah.
LA lingo. When I say flash, that's when two grown men are in a stall and they really like each other for that moment.
Yeah, I am. I'm quite suspicious of any internet site that expects you to put on your real name. That's I just won't use it.
I recently downloaded Odyssey just to see what all the hype was, and for some reason, I don't know why it went on an email that's my real name. And my username was my real name. I deleted the app. I was like, I don't want people
Okay, and Skits did catch me. The keyword is unsolicited.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I have gotten some that I asked for, just because it was on the level of the guy was bragging, and I was like, yeah, prove it.
That's dangerous though, because sometimes they really do have a baseball bat in their pants. I've said that. I'm like, I don't believe you. And then I'm like, whoa, this person is cocky because they are cocky. There's a reason why they're confident. Oh.
Well, and you can be confident without being an arrogant asshole.
Oh, I totally. You know what though? That again, that's overcompensation because arrogance is covering for something, for some insecurity that that person has that they don't want people to know. So they put on
Yeah.
this giant mask of arrogance, you know?
If they're cocky because of what's in their pants, it's because, okay, so you got a good draw in the genetic lottery, and that's the only thing you have to define yourself. You haven't done anything, you haven't accomplished anything. You just got lucky with what your parents gave you.
My dad used to always say, "Man, you better stay pretty forever."
Yeah.
He would say that to certain people, like, "Man, you better stay beautiful for as long as you can." Because once your beauty's gone, people are gonna treat you way different. Oh,
Oh, hey, Doc.
hey,
Hello.
Doc.
You working tonight or what's going on?
Confucius say, "Men with hand in pockets feel cocky all day." No, I'm off tonight, and I also don't work.
Awesome. If I see someone playing pocket pool, I'm like, you're a creep. I live in a major city, so we get real creeps, like real flashers, real creeps. You know, the
Well,
ones that people tell stories about.
I have said that, with transitioning, one of the things that the doctor kept emphasizing was that, you will likely have a diminished sex drive, which apparently scares a lot of people away. But I was like, that would be a good thing. I'd be able to focus on something else once in a while. I do have to say that, that sex was my only real addiction. And in the past, there were times I did things that weren't too smart to get a fix.
Agreed. In my head, I'm that cheesy plumber in that 80s porno. Agreed. I agree. I agree with you. I've done some like that goes back to like glad I'm still here kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and 40 years of working as a handyman, I never had anything like that happen on the job. But then again, it's possible that somebody tried to, but it's part of my autism that I don't realize when people are trying to flirt with me. I'm oblivious to it.
I painted a house locally where that's the only time that my life ever became a porno.
Doc, you're being really crackly, and we couldn't understand.
Yeah, I know.
What you said.
I'm having difficulty hearing y'all, and what I'm doing is I'm twisting the plug-in to the.
Well, right now you sound fine.
Right, but I'm having trouble hearing you all.
Oh, tech issues are the worst. How's it going, Jyuni?
Yeah.
I'm like eagle eye. I'm weirdly observant of my surroundings. I've found money more than once. One time I found a wad of cash on the ground. There was one time in Venice, California, I was paying for a soda. I was at the counter and I looked and there was a $50 bill flopped over on a Budweiser poster. I've found money all the time, so it made me weirdly observant. I'm really good at and I've seen The Professional like 500 times. So I always, when I sit in a room, I sit with my back to the front door.
Oh, I've always had a problem with that. That, I have to have my back to the wall. And again, that's when I read things about autism. And that's a very common thing. And one of the authors, who ran a group for autistics, said it was actually kind of funny, when they first started the group, and anytime they moved to a different room, there was always a scramble for who'd get the corner.
Oh, that's hilarious. But also, I was on my own from the time I was 17 until I met my ex-wife. So I was always weirdly looking out for myself because I was from the burbs, man. So I even for as tough as I am, like I
Yeah.
always had my eyes open for, scammers, just weird people in general. That's how I know the Church of Scientology preys on homeless people in Los Angeles. And they have different subsidiaries of like different names and different corporations, but it's the Church of Scientology who literally make homeless people sign NDAs to live in their compounds.
Yeah. They're scummy on a lot of levels. The way they get people and how difficult it is for anyone to leave.
Oh yeah. And they weirdly what's it called? It's a church something, but it fronts as like a Christian church, but it's a subsidiary of the Church of Scientology. And it's just weird to me that the Church of Scientology is willing to try to rope people into the religion by lying. Do you know, a native atheist, I will tell you, people that I know do treat me differently when they find out that I'm an atheist, especially people I've known my whole life. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. Especially because most people I grew up with were like Roman Catholics. So they ask me, they're like, "You really don't believe?" And I kind of tell them like, "No, I don't."
Apart from the online community, I don't know if anybody really knows because, I don't discuss it anymore. I mean, I was pagan for 25 years, and when it got brought up in from my oldest brother, he acted all shocked, and it's like, this is not new information to you.
Yeah.
So I just kind of figured telling my family I'm atheist is just a waste of time because they never got a grasp that I'd left the church in the first place.
That same. My mom still to this day, she always says to me, "Well, at least you're baptized." She actually says it at least once every time I see her. It's kind of like
I have to take that back. I think one of my sisters did get it because at the family reunion like 8 years ago, instead of the usual prayer, she had picked up a like Native American thing, about we're thankful to Mother Earth and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, I know she did that for my benefit.
That's all. That's at least that's consideration.
Yeah.
In my family, they'll jab with like, "Oh, I don't pray to science," or my brother. He's in a weird position, but he's like 14 years older than me, so he's like 55, 56. No, like 50. Wow, he's like 57-ish. But my whole point is, he still believes in this crap, and I just look at him, and every time he comes around, he's like, "Do you know you're going to hell?" Do you know, like, and I'm like, "You still believe in that Roman Catholic crap?
Yeah.
Good for you. Golf clap. Good for you."
Yeah, native atheist, I agree. Polytheism makes incredibly more sense than monotheism. Because if you're monotheistic and you realize how much of this world is screwed up, you have to somehow resolve that your perfect God allows everything to be screwed up.
I have so many questions for that perfect God. It's not even funny.
If you're a polytheist and you think of it as being like a dozen or more gods who are always arguing about who's in charge, it makes sense that everything's fucked up.
Are we going to go back to the everything is chaos Jurassic Park speech? No, I agree with you on that.
It is, but his demonstration with water glass sucked.
Well, back then Jeff Goldblum was doing sit-ups, so he looked decent with his curly fro.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the whole thing about the drop of water on your skin, theoretically, you could calculate all the variables scientifically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not actually a demonstration of chaos. The drop's going to move differently because the previous drop will have cooled down some of the tiny capillaries in your hand. So, a different spot on your hand's going to be just slightly more swollen because it's going to be warmer and things like that.
Well, as a avid science fiction watcher, it's easy to explain things away with hand wavy science.
Yeah.
Doc, have you been watching Picard?
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
or Discovery? So, Herb, I know you don't watch Star Trek Picard, do you?
I haven't watched any of it, but Sloth Girl just got Paramount Plus had a new introduction thing, so she just got it this week.
Oh, you should watch Picard. I don't want to give it away, but did you watch last night or today's episode, Doc?
Yes, I did.
I'm gonna say something. Spoiler. I'm sorry. When Q slapped Picard, it was like a grown man slapped my grandma.
Yeah.
It hurt my feelings. It hurt my feelings, Doc. It hurt. I was like, oh, I screamed out loud. It was like 9 a.m. I watched it this morning. I was like, what the F? This is hardcore.
I still love the line, Q, I'm too damned old for your bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. I was throwing my fist up like, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. It had me going today. Today's episode had me going. It did.
Oh yeah, and then when they're in the different world.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love those In the Mirror Darkly episodes. I don't care. I read the before it was cool, I read the Star Trek Next Generation book. You should read their alternate universe book. It is amazing. It's all over my microphone.
Okay, so
it is absolutely amazing.
Is Picard supposed to be like after Next Generation then? Is he like retired or?
Oh, he's old. He's an old man.
Yeah. He's a doddering old man.
Because and age, we all age differently. So, and I know William Shatner probably got a gang of California plastic surgery because he still looks good. But my whole point is, when they started doing the movies with the original cast from the original Star Trek, they were not, they all aged well together,
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart is at least 20 years older than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like Brett Spiner still looks good. Riker is
Riker still looks really good.
Yeah, exactly. I still have a crush on Beverly Crusher. She's still, Gates McFadden is still hot, and she's aging out too, So, but my whole point is, like, it's believable when Admiral Kirk is an older man with a belly. Like, we all get bellies when we're older, Like, it's believable. Picard looks old. And, and the only reason I say that is because my dad looked like that. So I'm like, man, when you get old, you look, it's hard to explain. Like, he just looks old.
The fucker's a ripe old age. Is I know he's at least in his 70s. Is he in his 80s or?
Alexa, how old is Patrick Stewart?
Patrick Stewart is 81 years old.
Yeah, that's right. When my dad he passed away at 80, but my dad started, he started getting kind of crypt keeper around 7, but he smoked a million, he smoked forever.
Yeah,
but,
that will crypt your keeper.
Yeah. and he drank a bottle of vodka every night and half a bottle of wine every day.
Well,
all that will shrivel you up like a raisin.
Real quick.
If he did a lot more physical work, it does wear out your body.
And my dad was skinny because he was like, he refused to, like, he literally runs his own shop, and he was a 70-something-year-old man out on a tractor, still like running crews, and that takes a lot out of you. So I'm not anti Picard, but like Oh, Junior, you're making me feel old. The Crypt Keeper is a character from a television show.
Yeah, that was
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt. That
Yep.
was like on HBO in the 80s.
I loved that show.
Tales from the Crypt.
I have season 1 and 2 on DVD. I loved that show.
I used to watch it, but there were so many of those kind of creepy, creepy shows, Twilight Zone-esque things, that I often get them a lot confused. So I can't tell you, specifically which
Yeah,
of
it's
like
like
4
a-
shows one episode is from.
Yeah, it's like I guess you could call it an anthology series because it's like a different, like a completely different story with different characters each episode. Is that
Yeah.
isn't that
absolutely.
what they pretty much call an anthology
Yeah.
series? But I don't know if I would really compare it to Twilight Zone. Exactly, because the stories themselves were pretty
Well, no, not
bizarre
exactly,
and brutal.
but
So if you
it's
guys
kind of a
sorry.
more general genre.
Yeah,
If you guys are looking for something to watch that's like that, that's British, because I watch British television. There's
Black Mirror.
No, well, it's an old school show. It's Ronald Dahl's Tales of the Unexpected. It was on, like, the later seasons were on in America, but like I had never seen, maybe I was a kid when the early seasons came out, but I love the stories, and every single episode is something different because Ronald Dahl was awesome. So every story is something different.
Yeah. I go back to the real old time stuff that I remember watching Alfred Hitchcock Presents before going to bed every night.
Like I said, I grew up like watching a lot of TV, so I watched a lot of that as a kid too. And I went
Yeah,
back.
I'm pretty sure when I was watching Alfred Hitchcock, it had been syndicated, but
That's like I think even without owning them, I think I've seen every Twilight Zone ever ever made of the original Twilight Zone, the American version. Ronald Dahl was amazing. Tales of the Unexpected is a great show. I watch it when I'm geeking out and sewing, and I just want to like drift off and not pay attention to anything.
I'll have to check Tales of the Unexpected. The Ronald Dahl movies that I've seen, I'm just kind of lukewarm on. So
Some of this, like, and the cool thing about a series like that is if you don't like the story, go to the next one. Because every single one is different. For me, I kind of look at TV shows in their context, and I also look at them as correspondence from that era, because we age ourselves by our clothes, by the shoes we wear. So when I go back and watch something from the 70s, I'm like, ooh, I can tell instantly what era it's from.
I've been watching Greatest American Hero lately.
That show was
where are you
awesome.
finding that one?
On IMDb. I get it through Amazon. And so I don't know if you can get IMDb like by itself, or if you have to get Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Sloth Girl's got Amazon Prime, so I could look it up there.
And
I
it's
watched
it's
both
free. IMDb it's free with ads, so you get commercials, but so it's kind of like regular TV back in the day. So
I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I watched a lot
Okay,
of.
I can deal with a couple of commercials for a decent show.
yeah,
I watched this this one. I watch really obscure YouTube, and I watched this. It's a channel, and it's been up forever. It's called Third Wheel, and they show what someone did is they got the entire Highlander series, and they put it together. So instead of all the flashbacks, it starts from the beginning of Duncan MacLeod to the very end. And it's weird to watch it without all the flashbacks and stuff, but it shows everything in order.
Hey, Neil. Doing a movie of it.
I'm so over remakes. Go rob
Well-
a different era. I feel like they
that
should
would be
rob-
cool though. That would be cool though if they do it. It would be interesting to see what they do because with the stuff they got today.
Some how's it going, Neil? Some remakes are awesome. Like I stand for the remake of Battlestar Galactica. I will go to the mat. I will go to the fracking mat like a fracking skin job. I love that show, But
Did you ever see the Robot Chicken parody of the new one?
yes.
Freaking Starbuck. I just fracked everybody in the mess hall.
Oh, but has there been a remake when you've been like, oh, this is terrible? Has there been something where you're just like, ugh?
I'm trying to think. The one for V, I guess. I tried to get excited about it, and it was interesting, but ultimately, I kind of thought it was just kind of too much of a departure. I wasn't terribly impressed. I don't know if you saw the new V.
I have, but I again, because I'm obsessed with VHSs, I watch the original V all the time. So I'm biased towards the original.
Yeah.
And the only reason I watched the second one is because it had the woman who played Adria in Stargate,
Yep.
SG-1. So
Well, it also had the new V had as their leader the companion from Firefly. I can't remember her name, but
I don't know. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it
Deadpool's
doesn't.
girlfriend.
I'm trying to think if there's other remakes, like they're trying to remake Stargate. You guys might see me on the news. I'm a one-man picket, like, don't make it suck. Don't make it suck. I'll be out there by myself, They're well, where I live, they're filming a ton of stuff right now. They're filming Strange New Worlds by my house. And
Swanky.
The only reason I know that, and the Section 31 show as well by my house, it's because I know someone who works for Amazon and he delivers over there. It's not like I'm up on the studios or anything, but
Yeah, apparently they already did do a reboot of Greatest American Hero with a woman being the hero.
They did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I never heard of that.
Well, I think it was right after the original one. I think it was supposed to be like one of his students that he gave the suit to.
They're bringing back Futurama for the second time?
And I think that like they did a pilot and like 3 episodes for it, and it just didn't go over, so they gave up on it.
Huh.
That's crazy.
I had never heard of that.
I'm trying to think. They're trying to reboot a bunch of stuff, and like part of me is like, no, but and I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I loved G.I. Joe. Okay, by the time the G.I. Joe movies came out, I was a grown man, so I had an opinion. I didn't like the first one, and I really didn't get into them.
Yeah, I was a big Transformers fan, and the Michael Bay movies are just they are not worthy of the name.
Exactly. Neil knows what's up. Okay, so all the late 90s shows I was into, like Stargate, all of them, they filmed in Vancouver. And if you go back and watch it, like you'll see someone with an Air Force uniform on, like, oh, it's a great day, eh? Let's go. Let's like total Canadian accent. I know that was horrible. Judge me. But total Canadian accent, and I'm like, that guy got picked up off the street somewhere. But Vancouver has the topography of alien worlds, especially on Stargate Atlantis. Every time they're in the woods somewhere, I feel like they're on Vancouver Island or something.
Well, I know Vancouver became a big thing for them shooting shows, and I know a lot of it had to do with economics, that it wound up a lot cheaper.
I actually went to Vancouver Island and did a bunch of mushrooms.
Yeah. I haven't seen the Bumblebee movie, but yeah, people have told me that was good and I should go watch it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that one because it is, I think Michael Bay is one of the executive producers on that one, but it was definitely done for Transformers fans because they really did an excellent job.
Neil,
Well,
see,
I just
hold-
get that, it's like Michael Bay does not care about a script or character development. To him, script is just to stitch together fight scenes.
Mhm.
You know, it's on the quality of watching a porno, really.
I have another confession. I haven't seen the Transformer movie past the one where they almost destroy Earth, and Shia LaBeouf is in it. It's like the second one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Vancouver, they have the same topography as Alien Worlds.
Yeah.
Stargate totally exposed that to me because there's one episode where it's like I think they go to Bridgelight Studios. If you look it up, the address is like Vancouver, BC. You know, gives it away.
You know, I really thought that. Well, I think it's terribly underused. Jim Henson's Creature Workshop should be doing a fuck of a lot more sci-fi.
Well,
for one thing, I said back when they started Next Generation that why do all the aliens have to be humanoid? Why couldn't they have gone to Jim Henson's people and just gotten a couple of things that weren't necessarily even bipeds?
well,
They didn't have to have speaking
Yep,
lines.
that's what-
Just they could walk past him in the corridors wearing a Starfleet uniform, just so you get the idea that it's a little more diverse.
Well,
Yeah,
Farscape
Farscape.
was it Jim Henson? That was
Yeah.
like when you see the size of the pilot, the
Yeah.
skill it would take to build something like that is awesome. And I think his name is Rigel. Wow, it's been so long since I've watched that show. When you watch Rigel talk, he's that little green blob alien. That's amazing work.
Yeah,
that is
Farscape was
amazing.
good. Well, I liked the beginning of Farscape. After they switched to the main villain, then I kind of lost it. I didn't really care for the new villain very much.
Wayne Pilgrim is an awesome human being. I met him at Comic-Con. Amazing human being. Amazing.
Was that the guy who played Scorpius? Or?
Yes.
Cool.
Absolute, just like real, total, just a real human being. Walks up to you, shakes your hand, looks you in the eyes, like appreciative that you know who he is. Like people like that are awesome.
Yeah, I always thought it was a Jim Henson.
That was the one
Workshop.
sci-fi show. Yeah, that was the one. Let me look it up. Jim Henson.
Yeah, I always thought that was how it was advertised.
Yeah, that was his one sci-fi show. That's why the aliens are so different than any other show. That and they filmed it in Australia. Or where did they? No, don't quote me on that. Where did they film it? That's another show where I watched it and I'm like, ooh, they do not film that around here.
But I think Jim Henson himself already died before Farscape started, didn't it?
Well, no, he was he died towards like he died. He didn't see the end of the series. He was alive when
it started. Okay,
yeah.
I thought he was dead before it even started. But...
He built a lot of the main characters.
Interesting.
Yeah. You know, I'm a sci-fi stan.
I'm not sure now. I'm looking on IMDb for Farscape.
Type in Jim Henson Farscape and Farscape popped right up.
Okay. I'm just not seeing any of the Jim Henson companies listed under the companies for Farscape.
Jim Henson Television production company was one of the production. It was Hallmark Entertainment, 9 Network, and Jim Henson Television.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call Dark Crystal sci-fi at all, really.
What?
No,
I'm into
Dark
all
Crystal
of
was
that.
definitely in the fantasy genre.
Have you ever seen Princess Mononoke?
I have not watched that one yet. I heard it's a really good one.
And Jim Henson was definitely dead before Farscape premiered.
Really?
Yeah, I was
They really
pretty
hyped
sure
him
of
up.
that.
Well, there you go. Corrected. They really hyped it up then.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
miss that
I knew
show.
it was Jim Henson Company, but they were but you know that they of course kept going after Jim Henson. died. So
Yep, Jim Henson died in 81, and Farscape didn't premiere until 99.
yeah.
Oh, I'm way off. Way off. I was obsessed with that show.
Actually,
Farscape.
that doesn't seem right. No, they've got to have the date wrong on that. I've got to look that up. When did he
Alexa,
die?
what year did Jim Henson die?
Jim Henson died on May 16, 1990 at the age of 53 years due to bacterial pneumonia.
He died a year before the show started. So he probably did have a hand on the production.
Yeah, he could have been in on the beginnings of it.
To make all that stuff, go watch the behind the scenes. I love watching something and being like, wow, how elaborate is all of this? Like when they pan back and they show the studios of how they build like the starships in the studios, it's amazing how they utilize small spaces, and you think you're on a giant starship, but you're just in a warehouse somewhere.
Yep.
The holodeck makes excellent use of finite space.
Hollywood is nothing but lights, glitz, and camera tricks, but it's still amazing how they do it. Like behind the music kind of killed music videos for me in the late 90s, but it's still amazing to see how the effort people put in. Even my stupid videos, it takes effort. You have to care to make a video, you know.
Well, I have said that's why I've been going for almost 5 years now, and why I'm still at only 500 subscribers. Because apparently, to be successful on YouTube, you actually have to put a bit of effort into your channel.
Oh, I gotta.
I'd like to do some more edited videos, but like you say, it does take some work to put together good ones. And I did like 9 or 10 of them, and I mean they were okay, but big problem I have is I have no artistic skills, so I don't know what to put, for the visuals. I don't want it to just be me on camera talking, but I don't know what else to put. So, I would be better off for radio.
I constantly quote Junk Shop, but they said one time in a video, like, just make a video. Just make a video of what you're into and you'll get better. Yep. And I took their advice and it worked. I just put a video out. I put a crappy 20-second video out that was like old friends, and I was so shocked that people watched it. I was shocked that people watched it, and it kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, but I kind of want to do animation. I kind of want to do things I have no skill at or training, and would require a computer probably way more powerful than I could afford.
Well, actually, Jen was 1N has put out a bunch of videos and doing animation all through an app that all she did it on was her cell phone.
Yeah.
And Lisa for Truth too has been doing videos with a app avatar. There's all kinds of stuff out that you can do through your phone. All kinds of stuff.
I could get really clever and do a lot of drawing and just do it old style and just animate with drawings and just take pictures with the phone.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I'm sure there's an app somewhere I could like string together a bunch of pictures, but I don't want to draw that much. It would take a lot of drawing, and I'd have to buy a lot of paper.
Yeah, I wish I had the skill that I could, even draw anything that people would recognize.
Yeah. You never know. Like I made that mohawk thing and I put it on Twitter, and like I get a couple hundred hits on a picture or something. couple thousand people have been looking at that picture, and it's growing, you know. And I thought I just literally made it out of scraps when I was having anxiety watching the news. You know, I just made it out of scraps one night. You know, art's funny that way.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know.
You never know when inspirational hit.
Well, apparently I should definitely go back and do some more historical pieces, which, you know, I definitely have been thinking about doing. But the one World War II piece I did has got like 8 times as much views as anything else on my channel.
It pops up all the time. The Reuben James, I watch it all the time. And I'll tell you why, because I grew up, you know, in a Navy family, so things like that are interesting. That's what I'm saying. We live in a giant world with people who are into the same things that you are. You just don't know it, you know?
Well, and, you know, I was kind of thinking of doing a series kind of like that. You know, that would be kind of like telling the story of individual ships.
Mm-hmm. My dad was on the Bennington, and like just how the ship got its name, who Bennington was. He was an integral person in Louisiana in the War of 1812. Like, the whole thing is history, you know? That stuff like that's very interesting to me.
Yeah, apparently the Reuben James was even, you know, named for a legend that doesn't actually hold to the actual history. That Reuben James was given credit for somebody else's saving the captain.
Dope.
Hey, you know, just like to the spoils go the victory. You know, do you know who invented the first toilet? I love saying this. Do you know who invented it? Thomas Crapper.
Yeah.
Thomas Crapper. And you know, he didn't invent the first toilet. He patented the first actual working real toilet. And we will only remember him. That's it. We won't remember all the crappy you know, wannabe toilets, you know.
Was it really made by Jimmy Shitpot or something?
No, Thomas Crapper invented the first flush toilet where the water flushes your flushes down, you know. People stopped pooping in closets because of him. Like Thomas Crapper, we should all stand and clap for the Crapper.
Mom, not in my closet again.
Well, you know, what you're saying, that most people who are credited for great inventions was usually just doing an incremental improvement on something somebody else had made.
Exactly.
You know, and a series I cannot recommend enough, James Burke's Connections. It was made in the 1980s. It still holds up well. That basically he follows this of how this happens, that, you know, through a series of improvements or like people taking inventions from like, you know, 3 totally unrelated things and mashing them together, that somebody got credit for this great invention. And it's like, yeah, all he did was a couple of little tweaks.
Exactly.
James Watt's steam engine. James Watt was repairing a Newcomen steam engine. He just made one improvement to it.
Look at Isaac Marriott Singer. He is accredited for literally putting a sewing machine in every home. All he did was take a sewing machine that didn't work home and improved on it, and had the money to mass produce, you know. And look at it now. Look at it now, you know, it's still going.
I'm reminded of a White Wolf Studios role-playing game that y'all probably have never heard of, called Aberrant. It came out in I think in '98 was the first rule book, and it was supposed to take place in 2010.
I've seen people playing it at conventions. I never played it myself.
Yeah, and the idea is, well, it's actually part of a 3-part series that came out in reverse order. It was White Wolf's science fiction role-playing game, so it was a complete departure from the World of Darkness that has like vampire, mage, and werewolf
things they usually did.
Yeah, and it actually started with the future one that was called It was originally called Aeon, but they later had to change the name to Trinity because the lawyers for the guy who owns the cartoon series Aeon Flux, they cried copyright, and it pisses me off because it's not, they didn't make Aeon Flux the role playing game and try to get away without paying. It had nothing to do with that guy's product. They just used the word aeon, which is another word like year or decade. It's a measure of time. So it pisses me off that they weren't able to do it. they had to change the name to Trinity. It was going to be a good gimmick because the first one was going to be Aeon, which took place in like the year 2120. So it was near future interstellar sci-fi. And then the second one took place roughly 10 years in the future, but modern era, and that was Aberrant. And then the third one takes place back in the 1920s during the pulp era. So movies like Indiana Jones and The Mummy could take place in that one, and that one was called Adventure. So they're going to have Aeon, Aberrant, and Adventure as a 3-part series to the same overall game. It just took place in different periods of time, and the whole thing was about the whole thing started in 1920 when Dr. Hammersmith created his Z-wave generator, a machine that generated what he called Z-waves, and it exploded, and it gave people superhuman powers, and there's like 3 kinds of metahumans, and aberrants were the focus of the second book, and like each one is a focus on each of 3 different kind of superhumans. But that's all digressing. I was reminded of Aberrant because Aberrant, it was roughly 10 years since superhumans burst on the scene, and some of the superhumans were superhumanly intelligent and inventive. So there's a lot of technological changes, advancements that occurred because of these super smart mutants.
What would
And
you? Sorry.
and one of the big things about it was they didn't have a lot of like some of the Star Trek technology. We don't have really anything like or today, or at least when it came out. We don't have warp speed, although now we're kind of getting there. We don't have holograms. We don't have replicators. So what they did is they mostly built on, they took the more logical route. Like, so the technology was advancements on things that existed. Like one of the biggest revolutions of the time was the hyper combustion engine. So it was an advancement on the combustion engine, but it was able to use either gasoline or alcohol and basically turn it into plasma.
Oh wow!
And it would use it was able to like get like 100 times the energy out of a fraction of the amount of fuel that a real world modern day combustion engine does. So that was one of the big examples. So most of it wasn't just off the wall crazy stuff. An aberrant character could make crazy non-existent technology, but it could mess them up because aberrants, as their powers evolved, they would become less and less human. So it would kind of you would get detriments, and you would get detached from humanity. So inventing something that
And what was the
that was
downside?
completely, yeah, well, yeah.
So
The downside is you can go crazy, or you can become a mutated monster. So
you kind of triggered a thought earlier today. I saw something about how Rome almost went into an industrial revolution. Where do you think we would be as a species in general if Rome had an industrial revolution?
that's very interesting. That would be a really interesting sci-fi.
Well, Rome had a lot of interesting stuff, and yeah, if they had, if they had a real revolution with the metalworking.
And I want people to think about this. And I know Americans always claim that we're first or whatever, but I really want you to think about this. And a lot of the Muslim countries in northern Africa did have indoor plumbing, but from the time Rome fell, there really were not paved streets and indoor toilets until Benjamin Franklin taught the people of Philadelphia how to not be disgusting. And I really want you to think about the time that lapsed between that. Like, where would we be as a people if if Rome had an industrial revolution?
Yeah, because everything you can do with technology, all of the technology we have today, all this advanced stuff, all of it can exist at virtually any time in Earth's history. So some of it, of course, is dependent on the environment and the climate and stuff. There's helicopters wouldn't work the same a million years ago.
But we progressed from one. Do you know, I always say this,
Right.
life isn't moments, it's always ongoing. So it was always forward progression. So
Yeah.
it would just be forward progression in a different way.
Right.
You know?
Right. But my point is the scientific principles are like still there. All
Yeah.
this stuff could exist at virtually any time in Earth's history. So it was just a matter of somebody figuring it out.
Well, a
So
lot
that
of
would be
stuff.
very interesting. Like, we could be way more advanced if Rome did a lot, and they had a lot of advanced thinking too. They already had,
Aqueducts.
well, atoms. Atoms comes from
Yeah.
Greek or Roman studies. They already had the idea that everything was made up of some kind of thing, some kind of unit, like almost a grain of sand, only way tinier than a grain of sand, and they conceptualized that.
Totally. So I had one of those stoner moments when I was reading the article. I was like, whoa, what would have happened? Imagine if we had gone to space 600 years ago, 700 years ago.
Yeah.
Imagine, we would be like the Terran Empire, but it would still be awesome as long as you were on the winning side.
Yeah, would we have ever gotten over the idea of all of the imperialism and that?
Well, Rome was different because Rome was join or die. What we consider race, like I always say this in a non angry way, but what we consider a white person wasn't around until like the 16th century. Like what we consider the Anglo-Saxon, like you're white, I'm black, like all these social constructs we have, Rome didn't have those. It was join or die. Because Northern Africa, if you look at a map, how far is Africa from Italy? A boat ride. I've done it.
Yeah.
It's a boat ride, So my whole point is they didn't, it would be an interesting world. They were still brutal. They were the worst of the worst. If you weren't on their side, they killed you. If you didn't join their religion, if you didn't praise them as gods, they'd beat you. They were the worst of I'm not trying to put lipstick on a pig or anything. I'm just saying it would have been amazing if Rome had an industrial revolution, because then they would have invented guns and then been unstoppable. It's just forward progression.
Yo.
That article really got me going earlier today. I stopped painting when I was reading that article. I'm like, oh, I gotta read this. That's the awful thing about social media is that I was like painting and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna finish this wall, then I have to read this article.
It would be fascinating. I wonder if you could get a team of scientists together, and if they could figure out in history,
Yeah,
like
chronologically.
what innovations could have occurred at certain times that would have sparked, more advancement at a sooner time.
And also,
Well, a lot of stuff they had the concepts in that, like, Da Vinci obviously had a lot of the concepts,
yes.
and I think
Yes.
a lot of the things that limited his inventions was just not having, the materials at the time, the lightweight, rigid materials that he needed.
Oh, that's like me and a few starships. I've already invented the USS Sewing. Like I'm on I'm on NC Sewing 6 or 7 by now. I've crashed that ship a bunch of times. Oh man.
I just created a new character for Star Trek.
Oh, awesome.
One of a recent ship rewarded for this thing you got to do every day was the Eisenberg class. It was featured very briefly in Discovery when they emerged at the 32nd century and went to where Starfleet was. One of the 32nd century ships you can see floating out there is, I think it's called the USS Eisenberg in the show.
Okay.
And it's got a weird kind of almost sewing machine look to it.
Now I have to go look. I have to go back.
You should look it up.
Hey,
just type in USS Eisenberg in Google and images, and you'll see it.
if anybody's interested in contributing, I am just looking for having a huge array of spaceship designs. And I want to get them from a bunch of different creators just because I want them to look completely different, so they actually look like they were developed by cultures on different planets before they met each other.
Oh, I have a ton of ideas.
That's a great idea too. I haven't been the best at designing starships myself, though.
Oh, Doc, thank you.
I've done a few, but the
looks so
limitations of my universe, though, are I'm trying to write something that is basically scientifically accurate, or at least doesn't violate any of the laws of physics that we know. So no one has actually been able to develop a faster than light ship. They've got some that can go close to the speed of light, but nothing that goes faster than light.
So thank you, Doc. The Eisenberg does look like a sewing machine.
Yeah. And it is a gorgeous ship, and of course you know what it's all about. What that ship, why it's called the Eisenberg.
Is that for Eisenberg?
For Aaron Eisenberg.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's an homage to Aaron Eisenberg.
And there's NCC. There's the Nog too.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's another person who I met in real life and was a real person and who would walk up, shake your hand, and give you a hug. If you say I'm a Star Trek geek, I bleed Starfleet, I don't know. The only person that was ever a real a-hole is Odo, but in real life, he was just he thought he was better than everybody else, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But
really, that's disappointing. I really like Rene Aubergenois.
He was like Stephen Hawking's, where if he didn't think you were intelligent enough, he'd tell you to F off.
Well, actually, that was one of the reasons I didn't get into Deep Space Nine. was I have never seen a sci-fi series that managed to pull off a shapeshifter.
Star
You
Trek
know,
has.
they just about always kill the show.
Yeah.
I loved Odo's character, and like it was disappointing. When
I
found
really
out-
I really like the way they did shapeshifters in that though, with that they kind of went fluid. You know, there was sort of a mechanical / chemical process to it. They didn't
Mhm.
just poof and change into something like they do on cartoons, you know. And
I
they
am
kind
so
of
biased.
they kind of expanded on it, you know, like how they could merge with each other and into the link and everything. I thought,
Totally.
I thought it was really cool.
Me too.
Well, I did come up
I'm
with a shapeshifter myself for my writing, and I came up with an actual way to explain it. That
Hmm.
the shapeshifter isn't really like just one animal. The shapeshifter is actually a colony of nanobots.
That's a better explanation than anything
Yeah.
in real life. Do you know how disappointed I was when I saw what radiation does to a human being? It doesn't turn you into the Hulk or
No.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It blasts holes in your DNA.
Because my father
It
was an
makes some of
electric
your organs melt from the inside.
because my my dad was an electrical engineer, so as a kid he would kill concepts real quick because he'd just tell me what would really happen to you in real
Yeah.
life, you know. So after a while I'd be like, bro, I'm not watching this movie with you because I just want to watch the effing movie. But he told me as a young kid, he's like, oh, you like Spider-Man, kid? Let me tell you what would really happen with radiation, because I
Yeah.
loved the Hulk and Spider-Man as a kid.
Yeah, gamma rays.
Yeah, you
like
ain't living. You're not
like that's
living.
what a pulsar is. It's high intensity gamma rays shooting out of two poles in a star, and if one hit us, the lit side of the planet, the atmosphere would ignite. It would boil, and it would ignite. It would become flame, and then it would burn off the rest of the atmosphere of the planet. So like gamma rays are no fucking joke.
That's what I'm saying. Like in real life, you're
At least high intensity. I mean, there's low intensity gamma rays bombarding us all the time. Most of it is filtered by the Earth's magnetosphere, but some of it gets through, and we're hit by it all the time, and it doesn't bother us. But it's a tiny amount.
Hi, Stool. How are you?
I'm not 100% sure.
We were
Have
just
you-
talking about Star Trek and
Oh.
SDO.
Yeah, we were going off, and I've
Oh,
speaking
fuck.
of
You're all talking over each other. Shut up.
all the
have you gotten to
obsessive,
your new undisclosed location?
Listen, Perps, can I speak, please? I'm raising my hand. Can I speak?
She just asked you a question.
The
I
floor
know, but
recognizes the British person.
I'm worried that B might be watching, so can I raise my hand? Because I'm not going to speak over anybody. That's a bad.
Yeepers! Did you get reprimanded?
First, oh, fuck. You know, that person scares me. I get in so much trouble. Firstly, Doc, thank you for saying Star Trek. I love you massively, Doc. I've not been able to play my game today. So I'm going to do that later.
Oh, so back on television shows, I've also been watching After Henry with Prunella Scales, and so I'm in love.
Scales.
I'm in love with Prunella Scales right now, and Vera Polling and I are going to talk shit about this stream when it's over.
Dude, you're American. Nobody knows that name.
That's why I said Vera Polling too, because no one's seen the show either.
Okay.
Yeah, it does not ring any bells with me at all.
Okay.
I fall in love with certain shows, and then I'm like, all right, I got to start at season 1, and then I start watching them, and there's a lot of old shows on YouTube.
I'm whispering. I had to go quiet there because a person came into the room. This is a really weird situation. Okay, so thank you, Doc, for talking about Star Trek. That was really cool. Tomorrow I'm going to get back into SDO because I've got one of the I think it's a console that I need to upgrade. I'll get on to that.
Did you get the Eisenberg?
Oh yeah, it's shit. Yeah, it's a bag of shit. Oh, you play on console, so yeah.
It's not a good ship, huh?
It's all right so far. I finally started using it with a brand new character, so it's low level right now, but I haven't been killed yet, so
I like that style. I haven't been killed yet. Yeah.
it's
I'm
a
not dead
metric.
yet, so the game still is. Yeah. I'm not dead yet, so the day still has possibilities.
There you go.
We all have our little indulgences, the things that we play that we don't tell each other about. So I'm not going to tell anybody about what Perps plays. Yeah. You do
Actually, I
play.
haven't wanted to tell anybody about what I play lately, so.
You do spend an awful lot of time playing that game, Perps.
Actually, I've spent lately. I had been playing a lot of Axis and Allies.
I know what you've been
And
playing.
I don't mention it because if you play the Russians,
Oh,
it
yeah,
is
don't do that.
basically obligatory that the first turn of the game starts by invading the Ukraine. So not
Oh
a
my
popular
God.
thing right now.
Oh no.
Jeepers.
Hey, Perps, one of the oh god, I'm having such a mental breakdown right now. I watched some television today for the first time in many years, and I watched the news, BBC News, so like proper grown-up stuff. And wow, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a mess
Wow.
over there.
It's beyond a mess.
Yeah, it's despicable completely.
You know what? I'm.
Dude,
Is this gonna fall into war talk? Because
yeah, it's gonna fall.
I've been
briefly
watching Nigerian television, and they've literally not been letting black people over the border, so everyone can go fuck themselves. Sorry.
Okay.
You go back to. I'm over it. I've gone back to watching.
Who's not been letting black people over what border?
The Ukrainians, the Polish, if you go to any, like, I watch Nigerian television, and they're literally like holding people hostage in hostels and starving them out. There's people being starved just for being black.
Yeah,
because they're
trying to flee Ukraine.
Yes, and they're not letting them.
That's fucked up. What?
Yeah.
Why is that? And is that Ukrainians doing that, or
Yeah.
why?
They're out for themselves.
Fuck?
This is why I don't talk about the war.
yeah.
The world is effed up right now. This is why I don't talk about the war, because things are just nuts right now. So
what the hell?
Yeah, that's why
I want to cry.
That's why I sit at home and play Star Fox. I'm not kidding you. I'm on this weird rotation where I play Mario, but I'm to the point now where I could beat the game. Like, if you sat me down for 3 hours, I could probably beat the entire game. And I haven't played Star Fox in about a year. But then, like, I started playing it yesterday, and I beat it within like 2 or 3 hours. Because I'll pause it, walk away, get in a conversation, come back, Yeah, man, the world's in a real bad way right now. That's why I stick to minding my own business.
That makes me sad.
Yeah, the world's after. But when you lose resources, people revert back to like us versus them.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm not making excuses. That's
Well,
why
yeah,
I'm
but
over it. I'm just over it.
it is kind of human, and psychology and ultimately anatomy, because where does psychology come from? It comes from the brain, where you are on the introvert extrovert spectrum is anatomical. It's it's a system in your brainstem in your brainstem that determines that. So it's like, there's a lot of just biological shit we really don't have much choice about. And I suppose when it comes to people who look different, there's humans have an appearance bias, and
Oh heck yeah.
and it's part of it, and it is part of evolution. It is part of our ability to discriminate one object from another, and discern a different meaning between two things. Eating an apple might be a good thing. Eating another fruit that kind of sort of resembles an apple or some other fruit could be your death. Those berries are good. Those berries over there are poisonous.
Yeah.
Even if we take it to I'm gonna bring it more back to the funny side. Like, I dress like a 1980s gay biker. And on my off days, I dress like Val Kilmer, where I'm wearing sweatpants and a plaid shirt, When people stare at me, I know it's for a reason, but human beings do have an appearance bias. I stick out.
Oh, absolutely.
I know I stick out because my pops used to call me a renta ethnic. He used to always say, he's like, you look like this and this and this. And I speak Spanish. And so someone will say something about me, and I'm like, ooh, they don't like my boots, or they don't like my pants, or it's always something. So human beings at the base level, we judge everything.
Mm-hmm.
In me, I'm a super like happy-go-lucky, whatever, semi-hippie kind of guy. I am quietly judging everything.
Mm-hmm.
We all do. It's human nature,
We all do it, and it's not to excuse anything. It's
Yeah.
really to explain and understand why this is such a difficult thing to overcome. And the best thing I've come up with, basically what I do is I'm trying to like remove the concept of value from superficial things. I can find things aesthetically pleasing or annoying, or even stupid, but if I don't apply some kind of value judgment to it, then I think I think that's kind of the point. That's where it's at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
that's why
it's difficult to do. It takes conscious effort, but that I think that's the best you can do, because you're gonna have that sort of judgment, and then you just gotta train yourself to say nope, that doesn't affect its value. My opinion of that person's appearance does not affect their value.
I'm like that, but I'm like that because I stick out, and I have for a long time, And I tell you, self-acceptance pisses people off. Like I said, in certain cultures, if they see an open gay man walk past them, they'll talk trash. They'll talk trash about that person, but really, it's that person just being insecure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the world's in a bad way right now.
Yes, it is. There's too many people. There's just too damn many people.
Drop me off at the moon, Doc, on the NCC Doc spaceship. Just drop me off on the moon. I just want a little bubble house like they promised me in the 1950s. I just want a little bubble house with my bubble helmet.
I did a lot of work in designing geodesic domes and how to build them. I never got a chance to really build a big one. The biggest one I built was only the size of a doghouse.
I'm not kidding. If Isaiah, like if I didn't have a kid, I would be living in the woods right now and not knowing any of this existed. That was like my dream, was to be disconnected from the world, you know.
Yeah.
I lived my entire 20s without watching television or having a cell phone. But you know, my 20s were before cell phones were what they are now. So I know how
My
it is.
20s were before pagers existed.
Yeah, I had a pager. You know, everybody thought I was a drug dealer. I just had really, really, really overprotective parents.
Okay, when I graduated high school, a mobile phone was actually a briefcase that weighed 30 pounds because of the battery.
My pops had the brick. We used to call it the brick. He had a car phone that was like a brick. Do you know how tacky people? My dad had a car phone in a 1980 something gold Buick. Oh, those were the days.
Yeah.
Those were.
It would even when I graduated high school, you know, the mobile phones were something that, you know, it was only like doctors who were real specialist surgeons and lawyers were the only ones who had things like that.
It was definitely man, I wish I had that phone. For the longest time, my dad also had one of those huge Motorola's, and I want to find one because they're almost big enough for like an iPhone 4. That's how huge those things were. You could get a modern, well, like a smaller phone, a slimmer phone, and put it in the face of one of those phones. That's how humongous they were.
Well, you know, I think I'd like to wrap it up here and try and get some sleep, as it's almost 12:30 my time now.
All right.
I was hoping that Stewart would pop back in, let us know how he's doing. He's supposed to have moved to a new place today. So, okay, Doc, you got any last words?
I can't think of anything. I could try something clever, but I've lost all nerve.
Okay, well, I'm sure you got stuff to plug.
Godless Sewing at the Godless Sewing channel. Come on down to the Godless Sewing channel. I have a video up right now. I have a brand new camera, so I'm going to be making a ton more content. I'm stoked. Send me suggestions on Twitter. Tell me to go F myself. Just tell me you hate me, you love me. It doesn't matter. Godless Sewing, Godless Sewing.
Brought to you by Carlos Jr.
Godless Sewing, Godless Sewing.
And you can catch me on the Shills channel Saturday at 6. And then, of course, we'll be back here next week, Wednesday at noon and Thursday at 10 p.m. And again, I need to thank my Patreon supporters. And, you know, for anyone who hasn't heard already, I used the money from that to go and buy a new headset because my old one died. And, yeah, this new one is just leaps and bounds far better quality than the one I was using before anyway.
Awesome.
So, you know, when I first feel happy with the used to that even. Nothing, you know, no complaints about this one now. One of the things I'm quite liking is the cord, rather than being the plastic cords, has kind of the fabric insulation. So it does not get twisted up weird ways. Oh, and Stool is back.
Oh, there he is. The infamous Eurotunnel has reemerged.
You know, the fun thing, that this is a true, Will. This is an absolute true. I don't look at me like that, Will. I know you hate me, you racist, but I've
It's because I'm not
traveled.
wearing my glasses and you actually can see my eyes. That's why you're getting the
Yeah.
look.
I can smell the racism, my friend. I've traveled so much, many, many hundreds of miles. I'm actually very close to the Eurotunnel, but don't repeat that, because my location must always remain secret because I am the Batman.
So don't repeat that you're near the Eurotunnel. Got it.
Never repeat that.
Never repeat that you are near the Eurotunnel. Got it.
Keep it secret.
Keep it secret that you're near the Eurotunnel. Got it.
Did you seal over the bat alley when you left the old place?
Is that really just your stripper name? I have so many questions. I think that's going to be my stripper name. Eurotunnel. Too many jokes for that one.
Well, actually, Stewart, we were just signing off here. I didn't know if you were going to be able to get back in here.
Oh, don't worry about it. You know, it's 6:30 a.m. here, so I'm just happy that I've got some. I can connect to the world. It's kind of goofy.
Okay, well, I was just thanking my Patreon supporters, Jyuni, who also did the artwork for my avatar and is doing some other artwork for me now. Ox, Robert X, the Lavender Lady, Greg Hartwick, and Dog. You know, I appreciate you all sending me a couple of bucks a month, and like I say, it really made a difference with my headphones dying that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to broadcast this week. So thank you all, and we will see you all later.
Rock out with the clock out.
What